So yeah, I've worked in security, 25 years now. But one thing that I'm quite cynical about, and I actually hate the term artificial intelligence. I don't think it's really a true explanation of what stage of development we're actually at within this technology. So I prefer either machine learning or augmented intelligence, absolutely fine. But it's not Skynet. The world isn't coming to an end. It's not HAL in 2001. It's not consciously aware. So therefore, artificial intelligence to me is probably an overstatement. But interestingly enough, what I'm going to try and go through is, for us at Fortinet, we do use AI. We have to use AI. If you actually look at some of the reasons for that and look at the evolution of AI, it's been around for a number of years, but we just haven't referred to it as that. Of course, marketing people get hold of the term artificial intelligence and everybody wants to sell it. Again, a little bit cynical I am, but let's see how we go. So, looking at how it can help us solve the cyber challenge today. If you actually look at Fortinet as an organization, I mean, we have about just on 2 million probes out there today, collecting metadata and anonymized data. What that causes is actually a problem for us, just with the amount of data we're having to deal with and manage. It's huge. Whereas, I can have all the information in the world, and it will just remain information. If I give it context, it becomes intelligence. If I then make it relevant, it becomes actionable. That's the goal that we're all trying to get to, is have actionable intelligence. I can go to a financial services organization, and then I can go to a manufacturing organization. The intel that is relevant to them can be light years apart. It can be absolutely, completely different. But as we look at some of the solutions that are out there today, and some of the solutions that we use artificial intelligence and machine learning for, these are just some of the examples. Sandboxing, EDR, UEBA, web filtering. All of these use artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence today. Yeah? We have to. And the reason why we have to is just the amount of data that we're having to manage and deal with. But of course, let's put it down and break it down even more, a little bit simpler. I'm looking at network, I'm looking at email, endpoint, web. They all have threats and pose a risk. How can I reduce that risk, and how can I make that the actionable intelligence available to you guys? So, looking at some of the points, and if you actually take this slide and you start looking at the top, and really what we're doing is we're looking at maturity. And if I look at, detect and protect for known and emerging cyber threats, that's been around for a number of years. Take that right down to the bottom here, predict and adapt future threats. That's the goal that we're trying to do. We're trying to understand what the bad guys are going to do, not just what they're doing today. As I say, with 2 million probes out there, it does give us a really good picture from a global threat landscape. But it still has its challenges as well. So, just to let you know, the bad guys use AI just as much as we do, of course. They know as much about our systems as probably some of our own engineers and development guys. Therefore, they're going to adapt, As I say, with my number of years of working in security, I've worked with some really, really smart people. Some of the smartest people I know used to be bad guys and are now good guys. They're clever, They adapt, they will obfuscate, they will hide what they're doing. They will use any tool available. And that's what we have to take into account, because the one thing they're actually better than us at is talking to each other. They communicate and share intel much better than we do, because us as an organization, or Fortinet and other vendors, we have intellectual property and we have a business to run. They have a clear common goal: earn as much money as quickly and easily as possible. That's it. If you actually, I did some time in cyber intelligence and looking at the organizations and how they structure themselves, they're run as a business. That's what we have to accept. Some of these organizations, they have their own HR department, they have their own IT department. They are literally just run as a business. And that's what you have to understand, because that's the threat. But, you know, as they're doing, they're using AI for fuzzing and looking at zero-day mining. They're looking at machine learning poisoning of information. They're trying to corrupt what we're trying to do. They're trying to give us false positives. And then the swarm technology, you know, automatically propagating, searching and finding vulnerable hosts that they can use. They can use against you, they can use it in either DDoS, or they could use it in various other different methods. But the most important thing for them is they are constantly looking for new areas to attack you guys. So they use it just as much. But what's driving the need for AI or machine learning? Well, just looking at the numbers here, yeah? The big one for me is 1.7 billion websites, and we are trying to categorize them. Biggest team in the world, and we wouldn't be able to do it. So we have to use AI. We have to use this machine learning. Looking at the number of threats and how they evolve, and the new threats coming out, you know? And let's take malware as a great example. It's complex and it's evolving. It's sold as a service. And there's a lot of money involved in it. You know, one example, one ransomware attack, it cost them, we estimated, about $4,000 to set up the attack. They made nearly $300,000 off that. It's big money. There was a group in Nigeria that were modifying invoices, large invoices. Over a 3-month period, they made $62 million. It's a lot of money, and that attracts and makes it very incentive. You know, there's a lot of incentive for them. But of course, they use agile development, hiding in plain sight. You know, they're very good at what they do, but we constantly have to evolve. And to do that, the more data we have, the more information we have, we've got a better chance of understanding them. So looking at what CISOs view, you know, they view malware, spyware, DDoS as the top 3. And it's easy for the bad guys to do this. Yeah? For them to adapt malware, for them to do it as a service and provide it, zero risk for them. Because actually, if you look from a law, actually writing malware isn't against the law. There's nothing wrong in that, as long as I'm not implementing it and doing the bad. So therefore, and they are actually, a number of them are risk averse. They will sell it. It's much more easier for them to sell it as a service than it is to actually take the risk themselves. But looking at the motivation, as I mentioned, you know, cybercrime is a huge, huge part of this. Of course, we hear about the nation-state attacks. You obviously mentioned China, Russia, all the other environments out there today. But in most of these situations, the threat to businesses, it's criminal. Just earn as much money. So looking at this detection evolution, it's been around for a number of years, you know, and there's another slide later on. When you actually break it down and understand how we've been adapting and modifying machine learning and augmented intelligence, it's light years from where it was. If I look at the business cases for it, you know, forget the surrounding parts here, look at the central one. Automate and speed up threat detection. That's the goal of what we're trying to do. We know we're constantly having to react. That's not a problem for us. But the goal that we're trying to achieve, as you saw on the other slide, was we really want to get to a point where we can start predicting, hopefully, the direction that the guys are going in. Because to us, that's true actionable intelligence. But of course, looking at what the business cases are, and improving the protection for you guys, that's our goal. You know, we want to make it as easy so that you are then operating at an acceptable level of risk. Because it's all about risk. But again, I can talk to one organization and their risk appetite is completely different to another. But if you can understand your level of risk, understand the threats, measure it and communicate it, you're actually not in a bad position. And looking at monitor for these compromised systems, it's not just today what they're doing and how they'll be attacking you. Do you already have compromised systems in your infrastructure today? Because an awful lot of people just don't know. So looking at this evolution, it's a journey, it's a path. It's not something that will happen overnight. As I say, it's got a long way to go. But if we can get to that goal and keep moving towards it, then we've got a chance. Because we constantly have to keep adjusting and adapting because they constantly keep changing the threat landscape. And that's a challenge for us. So therefore, we're trying to get to that actionable intelligence. That's the goal that we're trying to achieve for you guys. You know, it's not easy. If it was, everybody would do it. But we are making progress and we are getting a lot better at it. And not only that, we're actually starting to share some good intel as well with other organizations and law enforcements. So the learning models, you know, there's supervisors, unsupervised, and there's this reinforcement. Am I doing or taking it in the right direction? Is the information that this AI, augmented intelligence and machine learning is giving me, is it accurate? So this is the direction we're obviously going in. You know, do the right thing, doing the thing right. We'd like to think we're hopefully, you know, ahead of the game. But of course, none of us really know what's around the corner. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.